Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is one of those funny days where both the bulls and the bears of Bitcoin can declare victory. I'll show you why and kind of show you my thoughts on these things. Also too, if you're new here, my name is Chris, a professor for about 10 years, and this is all to help you grow your account and grow your mind. So let's look at the chart. It's interesting, when you change time frames, this is on the monthly chart, you can clearly see it's up and it's down. And this is something that has really been a long time coming. When things get overbought, essentially run too hot, right? They need to cool off. And sort of how markets work is, people buy, but you actually don't profit until you sell. That's a really key thing. Yes, you see the money in your account in terms of like paper money, but you don't actually make any money until you sell. And so this is sort of when markets can't go up in a straight line. And to be fair, they also don't go down in a straight line. But the way that Bitcoin has moved in this crazy move to the upside, we may have a crazy violent move to the downside to sort of level off, which theoretically, if you believe long-term Bitcoin, would be around there. That would be around the 10,000 theoretically, right? You guys can all see it for yourself, and that's why I put it on the monthly chart, because it's clear to see. In terms of like a healthy growth, if you believe Bitcoin's going to grow, the healthy trend would be more like around here, right? And you're probably still looking around the 10,000 mark. But I think the way these things work is with something like a Bitcoin, it's going to be in your round numbers. So we're at 19 right now. So you're looking at like a 20, a 15, a 10, and then a 5. That's what it's going to be. Now, my personal opinion is I'm bearish on Bitcoin. But I do want to address some things and I do appreciate people writing in comments, and we'll talk about sort of pros and cons of Bitcoin, which I think is fun. The first thing I think in terms of a pro of Bitcoin is you could say, hey, it's not controlled by any particular government. We're independent people, and we want to, have our own system that's fair and free, et cetera, because, this is true. If I have a bunch of dollars, the government can just print up dollars whenever they want and essentially devalue my money. And you can say, oh, well, cryptocurrency is independent from that. The issue with that, though, is like, who's regulating it all? And you can say, no, just everybody. But it's not really like that. I mean, one of the things with cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as a whole, it's anonymous. And, there's big holders of this stuff. And I don't know who they are, what they're doing. The other thing is, too, which I think is kind of a real big negative of cryptocurrency, is once you send money to someone or something of that nature, once it's gone, it's gone. Whereas like a bank account and like, real dollars, et cetera. And this is something that happened to me. Someone used my credit card. They bought some shoes. I'm like, what? I didn't buy shoes. And I called the credit card company and say, hey, I didn't buy shoes. And the card company will investigate and they'll actually send you a receipt, and then they just reverse the charges. So cryptocurrency is not like that. And this is sort of where, yes, I get the negatives of fiat currency. I really do. But that sort of basic consumer protection of having charges reversed. Also, too, like if there's any kind of bank error, and you guys, I'm sure you've had bank errors in your history. Like I had another situation, it was my bank, where like I found out I was donating money to a church. And I was like, what? I don't even go to that church. I don't even know where that church is. And called the bank and said, I don't know what this is. And again, the reverse. So I'm just mentioning some things and I don't work for the banking industry. I'm just saying, like, as a consumer, I have certain protections that I like. The other thing is, too, is I like that if my bank fails here in the USA, that is insured by the government, essentially. I believe it's like 150,000, and then for banks, and I think it might be 500,000 for brokerages. I could look at the numbers exactly, but I'm just saying because it does change because of inflation, and in fact, we might have to change it again. But we do have insurance on these things. Where at crypto, there's no insurance if like Coinbase fails, or Robinhood fails, or Celsius fails. The other issue as well is who owns your crypto. If said company fails or whatever, they have rights to just take your assets. And this came up with Coinbase. So I just mentioned these things for you. Now, on the positive things that people say, I'm trying to go with positives, is, if you want to do international exchanges, this is just also very real. Currency fluctuations happen quite a bit. And so one of the easier ways of methods, I guess, of sending money would be through cryptocurrency. This is just one thing. I already mentioned some negatives, but I'm just saying this is a positive. You can theoretically send money. The problem with Bitcoin, though, is that it's not as efficient as sending money as some of the more later sort of newer generation, I guess you could call it models, or what do you want to call it, coding, et cetera. But the newer projects of cryptocurrency are more efficient at sending money and things of that nature. Bitcoin is not really efficient. It's not power efficient either. Which I think is something that if you guys kind of wondering, there's all these things contributing to the fall of Bitcoin, but power is a big one as well. it just costs money to mine, right? You got to run your computer all the time, essentially. And if energy costs are soaring and the Bitcoin price is falling, right, sort of get a diminishing returns. And I mentioned before in the beginning is like, this is the pros and cons of, or not pros and cons, but the wins and losses. Bears win, bulls win or losing. Who's winning and losing? So for the bull case, you could say, well, see, look, Bitcoin held 17.5, therefore, that is the bottom, and Bitcoin looks strong. And see, my brothers and sisters, we're gonna prop Bitcoin, and we're gonna hold this level of 20 and diamond hand it. The bears would say, well, look, it's obvious that Bitcoin is going down. It just doesn't go down completely, in a straight line. Just wait again until next week. And on the monthly chart, it's hard to make the case that the bulls are right. I mean, it looks like a pretty bearish scenario for me if you just look at the chart. I'd love to hear your guys' case of if you think, and this is sort of a realistic take on it, is like, let's say I'm going to be buying my Bitcoin today, and I'm going to buy it at 19. What would cause Bitcoin to suddenly go from 19 to 25 by next year? This is sort of how you want to think about your investments in anything, and not just crypto, but anything of like, okay, if I'm buying in today and I believe I'm at the bottom or believe I'm getting at a good price today, what would cause it to go up tomorrow? What would cause it to go up next year? And I think the case that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, I don't think it's a good case, to be honest, because inflation, the idea is like money is essentially worth less. They're printing lots of money everywhere, et cetera. But just Bitcoin isn't reacting in that way. The way Bitcoin is reacting, it's been following the NASDAQ essentially. It's also a risk asset. And this is sort of another big kicker is the Russian money in Bitcoin, right, is at risk. The Chinese money in Bitcoin is at risk. These two countries have a lot of holdings in Bitcoin, and their governments may, crack down on citizens who have a bunch of money in this stuff. Also, too, regarding like what happens in the geopolitical events and what's going on with Putin and things of like this nature, it's unstable essentially, right? It's true other countries have money in as well. I'm just saying those two in particular. The other issue with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, which is also very real, where governments wouldn't want this kind of stuff, is if you want to do illegal transactions, and illegal could be any number of things, selling weapons on the black market, and I mean like big money weapons, essentially think of it this way, in a James Bond movie where the terrorist wants to get a particular kind of, weapon and that kind of thing. And then how do you transfer the money? And in the movies they'll have like, I want your Swiss bank account number, et cetera, right? Bitcoin is kind of like that stuff as well. So those kind of transactions, governments don't necessarily want to have around. They want to be able to track everything. And I get it that the argument against that is like, well, we don't want to be tracked, and therefore we must have Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But I'm giving you some pros for tracking of it depends what kind of world you want to live in. And I think part of what's going on, and this is sort of what's disturbing, I made a sort of a joke video yesterday, which I'll do from time to time, but there was a YouTuber, and I won't say his name, and I'm sure there's more than one doing the same exact thing, but I found it really troublesome. So basically the message that they're telling their followers is mainstream media is a bunch of liars, and that Bill Gates guy thinks, Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme, and Bill Gates is so dumb, he's old, he doesn't understand, and he just doesn't want you to be successful. And I just felt, it made me feel so uncomfortable. As a professor in the classroom, I'm keeping it real with you guys, I make it required. We study both Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. There's a movie I like, Pirates of Silicon Valley. Yes, it's a movie. It's not entirely true, but just I show it in class because it introduces the idea of like how these people became successful, and then we talk about the reality of what happened. But I just don't think it's crazy to say like a Bill Gates and Steve Jobs did really well in their lives in terms of their careers. And to just like completely dismiss these people as like stupid. And, I remember all these kids on the internet saying, oh, Warren Buffett's so dumb. He's old. He doesn't understand crypto. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, the greatest investors in American history, or theoretically world history, have been largely against crypto. And it just always makes me so weird when people call, people have been doing this stuff for years and highly educated dumb. It makes me feel so strange. And I feel like that's the kind of the crazy world we live in. And, in my opinion, this is sort of where you have this divide between the crypto bulls and crypto bears, to where, I noticed in the comments that there's a lot of us. So I'm more the bearish side of where like, I just want this craziness to end and get back to normal markets. Because the general gist of it is, and I'm sure you guys have found this as well, is like, okay, I know crypto, I know Dogecoin and Shiba, all this stuff is all basically Ponzi schemes. But yet people are making money on it. I also keep it real. I'm a trader. Like, you can make money on this stuff, right? You can totally make money on it. But it's like, you want to get back to normal markets so they're more rational, because in an irrational market, nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. And it makes it hard to navigate. And then you're asking yourself, okay, if nothing makes sense, should I just be joining Crazyland and throwing all my money in now? So we didn't. At one point I had $50 of Ethereum. Now I think it's down to $20 of Ethereum. So I really don't have much money in this stuff at all. So no, dog in the game, or dog in the fight, I guess you could say. But I just wanted to say sort of just my opinions on this, of why people have different views on it, right? I think for some people, it's sort of like a get-rich-quick scheme. They think, oh, if you hold it for 10 years, we're going to be the future, et cetera. And you have all these stars promoting it. And then for those older people, or just even not even old, just other people who are like risk adverse, we're all just like, oh my God, these people are crazy, but yet they're making a bunch of money. And then we feel crazy because we're missing out on that money. And it's just a funny time to be alive. And I understand some people get upset to say, Chris, why are you kicking people when they're down and stuff? Here's the reality. Anyone who's throwing their money in like a Bitcoin, like a Dogecoin, like a Shiba Inu, and you know this true, you're lying to yourself if there's no risks in this stuff. You're 100% lying to yourself if you don't think there's risks in this stuff. And kind of, I'm fine with people taking risks. I got no problem with that. But what I think what the issue is really sort of this illusion that there's no risks, and this over exuberance and cheerleading stuff. And I think that's sort of why I started thinking more about all these YouTubers out there for the past couple of years of just pumping crypto. And believe me, I really get it. I get stuff in the markets wrong sometimes. Other people get stuff in the market wrong sometimes, too. But we're talking about two different things of saying like, hey, you know what? I was wrong about Boeing. They didn't get the contract order, right? Maybe next year they're gonna get the contract, or they're just crappy engineers over at Boeing. Or I was wrong about, Apple's new phone. It was a complete failure. That was a bad business decision, et cetera. Whereas like crypto, I mean, it's hard to make the case for me that I would want to throw my money into any number of these just random coins and NFTs that are, propped up by essentially a crazy market. And I don't know when this stuff is going to end. I'm just watching Bitcoin now as we're watching the price together. It's at 19.4. But I do sort of enjoy navigating this sort of stuff with you guys. I think there was probably some liquidation and enforced liquidations going on. Basically, if you've borrowed money to buy this stuff and it hits a certain level, and like your brokerage or wherever you have it is like, yo, you got to liquidate, you got to sell now because I want to make sure I get my money. At the end of the day, the house always wins. The broker's not going to lose money because of your decisions. And so I wouldn't be borrowing money to be putting, stuff into this. And I, for anyone out there listening who's in this stuff, this is a real good lesson in risk management. Never throw your eggs all in one basket, and understand that things do come to an end. And anytime, I'm keeping it real, anytime people say like, oh, don't worry, just wait 10 years, you're going to be golden. Always worry when people say that kind of stuff, because the reason is that this whole like 10 years you're going to be golden thing, you can never disprove them, right? Just always stay realistic with any investment that you make. Also to know what era that you're in. Know when you're a bubble, and it's true you can make money in a bubble, but know it's a bubble. If you can't see the bubble, you're really going to get burnt, which is happening to some people. So I can't give any recommendations what I would do right now. So generally speaking, for average people, they usually get in too late, right? They buy at the top, and then they get out also too late, right? They sell at the bottom. So usually you want to plan ahead with any of this kind of stuff, to where don't worry about catching the bottom, don't worry about catching the exact top, right? Just worry about risk management. And that's why we always talk about that on this channel. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Love to hear your thoughts on this stuff. I'm not a fan of Bitcoin. We never got into it really. And, obviously, I'm just keeping it real. Obviously, I wish I would have bought some, 5 years ago and then sold the top. But, the way I look at it is, because of my personality is risk adverse, I'm never going to lose all my money, right? I may not, 1,000x my money on Bitcoin, but I'm not going to lose it all or go in the hole. And so everyone's got to take their risk management to what they see fit. So I wish you guys good luck on this thing. And it's funny, we'll see where this thing goes. I feel like we're trending down, and if you look at the monthly chart, it feels like that way. But like I said, bulls and bears can declare victory. So that's all my thoughts. Love to hear your thoughts as well. And thanks for watching.